So first we're going to talk about designing studies and collecting data. So today's focus is going to be on that. All right. You guys know some of this because these are things people do all the time in different scenarios. That's why statistics is pretty cool. It's not like a math, like I only learned this in math. Like if you go ask your history teacher something about logarithms and exponents, they probably don't remember, depending on how much experience with that they've had. But if you presented them with some statistical information, okay, they would have some idea of what you're talking about. Okay, and then if you wanted to sway them one way, you could present statistics that favored your opinion, and if you wanted to sway them another way, you could present just the statistics that favor that opinion. So in today, we're not only going to talk about collecting it, but things to be aware of when you are collecting data or when people present you with data, because you could be easily fooled by what they are presenting you with. Okay? So when you're designing a study, okay, we're going to look at what steps 1 through 6, then we're going to come back here to step 1 and let you guys brainstorm a little bit. So first you identify the variable and the population that you wish to study. So variables are characteristics of the population. So those of you that started my survey, what was one of the questions on the survey that I gave you? Savannah. How many states have you been to? If that's the question that I'm posing to people, okay, and I've sent it out to my 3 Algebra 2 trig classes, the variable is the number of states people have traveled to, right? That's the characteristic that I'm trying to study about them. Who is my population that I'm trying to study? My Algebra 2 trig students, right? I can't say this is true of all Huntington Beach High School students because I have only represented a portion of the population. If I told somebody this is true of all students, they might look at me and go, what grade levels did you have in here? Because we have mostly 9th and 10th, right? We have some 11th, and we don't have any 12th graders. So that would be something wrong with my survey if I was trying to be representative. Sorry, Amanda. If I was trying to be representative of the entire population, right? And then they might look at things and say, well, you're only polling students who are on, like, honors type track courses, right? Like, I don't have a sample of the whole population. So my population would just be Algebra 2 trig students, okay? Then I would, so if I said, okay, I want to study how many states they've been to, I would develop a plan of how I was going to collect my data. Apparently, what's my plan? Email out a survey, right? Okay. And then if I'm using a sample of the population, so if I cannot reach the whole population, sometimes impossible, right? I need to make sure that my sample does represent the whole population. So like I just pointed out, I wouldn't say you guys are representative of the entire Huntington Beach High School population because I feel like by the course you're taking, by the age you are, I've kind of narrowed the type of population that I'm looking at. So I wouldn't want to take data from you guys and say it's representative of the whole school, okay? If I wanted to be representative of the whole school, I better make sure I get all grade levels, same amounts of boys and girls, people on all different types of classes, all that kind of stuff, okay? Then you collect the data, okay? Then you describe the data. So when you describe data, people find it useful to know measures of center and measures of spread. When I pass back your guys' test, what's the first question you always ask me? Well, you have your test, so you have your grade. What's the average? What's the average? Ms. Dahl, what's the average? I haven't put it in Canvas yet. I don't know the average, right? I didn't calculate it by hand. Okay? So you guys like to know the average. I like to make a little tally chart of how many A's, B's, C's, D's, and F there, where I care less about the average. I like the median better. I like to know where the middle was. Because if the middle was at a B, that means half of my students got B's or above, half of them got below. That's very good, right? Now, the average, though, might not be that, because what if there's 5 people that have zeros on the test? They're dragging down my average, right? Because their low was so low. So I like the median better because sometimes the low scores are so low that they're dragging it down, and I don't feel like the number that I calculate and give you guys as the average is really representative of how people did. But if I can tell you half the class got B's or better, I think that gives me a better idea of how the overall population did, right? Okay, so both median and mean are measures of center. Mode is also a measure of center that I've heard you guys have heard about before. Okay, and spread is how spread out the data is. Okay. Then you interpret the data. So this is just giving somebody the numbers describing the data. Oh, I have data with this kind of mean, median, or mode, this kind of spread. Then you want to tell them what does that mean. Okay, this means girls have higher GPA than boys. I don't know. Is that true? If you're comparing the measures of center and spread, am I offending some people on purpose, right? Okay, so then the measures of center and spread, you could use those to make decisions. Notice it says or assumptions because maybe they're not really decisions because you didn't sample well or something like that. And then lastly, you identify any possible errors because in a real world, that might be that you have to redo something or you have to redesign something because there was something you didn't account for that affected your results. Okay? So what I want you guys to do right now is I want you guys to list some variables that you think would be interesting to study about the Huntington Beach High School population. So you're just going to brainstorm in your groups. I want you to divide them up into quantitative variables and categorical variables. Does anybody have any idea what those words mean? Michelle. Good. Quantitative deals with the numbers. So the question I asked in your survey, how many states have you been to? I am collecting a piece of quantitative data. It is a quantity, an amount, right? Somebody give me another example of a question that gives you a quantitative piece of data. Jonah?
Number of beds.
Okay, good. Okay, the number of beds in your house, right? Pets. I'm like, beds, okay. That's like how many people are there. Okay, the number of pets that you have, right? Okay, so that's quantitative. So what's a question that wouldn't be quantitative? Andrew? Your favorite color. So favorite color would be something that is categorical because they're just kind of picking a category rather than giving you a number. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? All right, so take a couple minutes with your group and brainstorm things that you think would be interesting to study about Huntington Beach High School students, some that are quantitative and some that are categorical. Okay, an idea of a quantitative thing that would be interesting to study about the population here. Danny. Your height. How many personal electronics you own. How many sports you play. How many times a day you tie your shoes? No. Amount of friends named Jake. How long is your hair? Very interesting. Yeah, Zach. How much you sleep. Yeah, many people are interested in that. Okay. All right, what about some categorical things you guys think would be interesting? Savannah. Do you like sushi? Political party. Oh, extra interesting right now, right? Some people might just walk away from you. I don't know. What's that? Dogs or cats? Yeah, people have been asking me that recently. Favorite ice cream flavor? Okay, so we get the idea, right? Because you guys eventually are going to be choosing something to study, so think about it. All right. When people decide what they want to study, they then have to go and collect data, okay? People collect data multiple ways. They do observational studies. They do experiments. They do simulations. And they do surveys, okay, in order to collect data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide us up, and then when you share out, we're going to write it down. And you guys can use the book has some information on some of this stuff. You can use your device. You can search, whatever, okay? Basically, let's have these two groups right here. You guys figure out what an observational study is, and then try to think of something that you could study using that method, okay? So you're going to Google or look up in the book, whatever, observational study, okay? Let's have you two groups right here in the middle. Look up what an experiment is. I know that's going to be really hard, okay? In your experiment, for statistics, also make sure you just mention what a control group is and what a placebo is so people understand when they read that about experiments, okay? All right. These two groups right here, group 1 and 2, you guys look up what a simulation is, okay? And then the back three groups, so group 3, group 6, group 9, look up what a survey is and decide when a good time to use that would be, okay? Do it in the next couple minutes. So just try and define what it is and think of a time, something to study. You could use that idea to study it. Okay, just so we can get the definitions and make sure we get everything. And we'll be able to revisit it tomorrow when we're doing displays. Okay, my observational study groups, can one of you guys tell us what it is so we can write it down? Okay, so listen carefully. Okay, so slower, louder. So a study in which they observe, right, objects and variables. Is that right? Without assigning treatment. Okay. So it's an observation of objects or variables without them assigning treatment. That assigning treatment statement means, are they giving the person something or putting something in? No, they are just watching them. Okay? Yes. Without, in their case it said without assigning treatment. Basically, they don't make the person do anything or ask the person anything. They just watch the person in their normal setting, okay, or the object or whatever variable it is. All right, experiment. So, Nicole. Okay, so a procedure carried out to make conclusions about a hypothesis, right? So we kind of knew this from science, right? You do science experiments all the time, and in the scientific method, you start with a hypothesis, and the purpose of your experiment is to draw some conclusion from that, okay? So what is a control group in an experiment? Michelle? Yeah, so it's the group that you're not giving. So let's say I was giving like an experimental drug or treatment, right? If I want to see if the drug has effect, I can't just give it to the people and watch what happens. I have to have the people that had it and the people that didn't have it, right? And so normally when they do these types of studies, they'll have everybody come and everybody will get something that looks the same. So everybody signed up for the experimental treatment. Everybody gets a bottle of stuff, okay? However, what they don't know is some of them don't actually have the medicine, okay? They are part of the control group, meaning the group that you are checking your evidence against, okay? And what they have is something called a placebo. So a placebo is just like, it looks like if you're supposed to be taking a pill, it would look like the pill, but it would just be made of like sugar or something. So you would take the pill every day and you would think that you're taking the medicine, but you're not. The reason that they do that is sometimes people's psychological effect on their body has some effect. And so when they take something and they think they're getting something that's making them better, sometimes they show symptoms of feeling better. So if I want to test that my drug is good, I can't just say, here's a drug that makes you feel better. Because sometimes they're like, yeah, I do feel better. You know, it's just like something that you do. I do it to my kids all the time. Oh, this makes it better. Like, it's better. Like, you know, even if it had nothing to do with it, you know. Okay? So you have to take somebody that you're telling that to that's not really taking the drug and compare them to somebody that is taking the drug just to make sure it's not just like their psychological, like, yay, I'm taking something to make me better. I feel better. And see if you really have evidence that yours is better than them doing nothing. Okay? All right, simulation, people. What is a simulation? Who has a definition for us? Okay, so say the first part again.
The imitation of the operation of a real-world process or system over time.
Okay, so you're imitating a real-world process or system over time, okay? So we'll see some examples of when we would choose that, okay? All right, survey. What's a survey, people? Jordan.
An investigation of a group of people based on a series of questions.
Okay. You guys got that? So investigation of a group of people based on a series of questions. You guys are going to develop some. So here's some scenarios, and let's talk about how we think we would do this, okay? Well, write it down. Okay, part A. If you wanted to test the effect of a severe earthquake would have on Southern California, would you do a survey, an experiment, an observational study, or a simulation? Brooke? Good, a simulation. You would try to build something structured the way that we are and create that movement, okay, or change in structure. It'd be way too dangerous to, like, try to have a real one, okay? I don't even know how you would do that. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, so we would do a simulation for this. All right, whether or not a certain coupon attached to the outside of a catalog makes recipients more likely to order products from a mail order company. Getting? Okay, so an experiment. All right, so you would actually put some on the outside of the catalog, but you'd have a control group where they're not on the outside of the catalog, right? Where they're on the inside or something like that, and see if there's more people using the ones from the outside than there are from the inside. Okay, so we could conduct some sort of experiment. Because we could control that, and we could tag it some way that we knew it was from the outside, and we could test the results of that. Okay, whether or not smoking has an effect on coronary heart disease. Good. Observational study. You could do an experiment. There would be some extreme ethical standards that you would breach in doing so. Okay? Because you wouldn't want to create a group of people that you're going to have do something to see if it's detrimental to their health, and then have a group that's not. So in this case, you would choose a group that has already made that choice and observe. But you wouldn't say, you guys made it into my smoking group. Here you go. You don't want, I'm sorry, I really need you to do this for the information, for the experiment, you know? Okay? So we would have to observe in this case. All right? All right, determining the average household income of homes in Huntington Beach. Okay? A survey. Right, you could just ask the question, gather the data. You would just have to make sure you were only asking people in households in Huntington Beach to be representative of your population. Okay? All right, now, the next page is full of a lot of information. That's basically like your mini textbook, okay, on this stuff. And we're going to come back to this in a minute. As a matter of fact, here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to read these tonight, okay? So I'm adding one little extra homework to it. Read these, okay? These are different ways that you can get data from people, okay? I would say that I did a somewhat convenience sample because I didn't make sure everybody answered and all this. I just sent mine out via email because it was convenient, right? And technically, mine is kind of like a volunteer sample because if someone doesn't fill it out by the deadline, they're just not included in the data. So that's probably not the best way to get the entire population I'm looking for. But so you guys can read what those are. And then if you could try and answer number 2. Okay. And then we'll skip number 3 for now. It's about this random number table. You know how I always pick your groups from the calculator? Right? Like I let the calculator pick a number, a random number. This is how the calculator picks random numbers. It basically has installed in it a table of random digits, and then, like, depending on how many digits your number has to be, it basically just scoots along the table and picks different numbers for you that way. I know, it's weird that you have to have one of these, but if you don't want to be biased, like, you might always pick the number 5 or something, and then, like, you're picking 5 too many times, or you're always starting with that 5th person. This is a way to be completely unbiased with your choices. All right, so we'll talk about example 3 tomorrow. So here's what we want to look at. Look at how data can be misleading. So you guys are going to read the different types of sampling, okay, because you can do that outside of class. We're going to do this here. All right, so a little review from, like, middle school. You have a little chart here, okay? I want you guys to find the mean, the median, and the mode. How do you find the mean? Lauren? Good. You average. Add them all up and divide how many are there. You don't have 4 pieces of data here. We have 10, 13, 14, 15. 15 pieces of data, right? Pay attention to the chart. You have 10 20,000s in your data. You have 3 25,000s in your data. You have 1 250,000 and 1 280,000. Okay, so when you add those up, you're not adding 20,000 once. You're adding it 10 times into the data, right? And once you add them all up, you're dividing by 15 because there are 15 pieces of data here, okay? How do you find a median? I talked about it earlier. What is the median? Laura. Good. It's the middle. If you lined up all the data from least to greatest, your whole list, 1 of these, 3 of these, 10 of these, what number would be in the middle of that ordered list? Okay? And then what's the mode? The number that occurs the most. Okay? All right, so real quick, write down the mean, the median, and the mode. Say that again, Jason. $53,666? Okay. Okay, so our average is $53,666.67. What was the median? Someone that came up with that. Rachel, you had stuff ordered on your paper, crossed out from the beginning to end. What'd you get as the median? 20,000, okay. There's a lot of 20,000s in the list, right? That's why it can still be the middle, even though it's also the lowest one. And what was the mode, Savannah? And the mode was also 20,000, okay? So, if you were a real estate agent, okay, and you were selling a house in this neighborhood to a snobby person who wanted to live in a well-to-do neighborhood, sorry, using lots of labels just to give you the picture, and you have this data, you know the data for the neighborhood, what would you say to the person? Michelle? Yeah. That's what, I let Jason calculate it, but that's what he said. Did you guys get 53? Yes. Remember, there's 10 20,000s, but you also have to have a 280, a 250, and a 25. I'll look at your calculation at the end. Okay? All right. So what would you quote? Here I am. I know the data for the neighborhood. If I'm a real salesperson, okay, put morals and ethics aside for a minute. If I'm a real salesperson and I want to sell to this person who wants to live in a well-to-do neighborhood, what piece of data here would I quote them? Savannah. Yeah. Okay. So you might mention some of those higher numbers, right? And then she would basically refer to the mean or the average. So you say, oh yeah, the average salary is $53,000 here, and you have this person making $250 and this person making $280, right? Because it makes the neighborhood sound one way. If you were the person buying the home, what are some questions you should ask to get a better picture of what's going on? So if someone just tells you hey, the average is this, Brooke? Okay, so the way that the data is spread, okay, and even just how spread out it is, right? If they told you the average was 53,000, but then told you that the spread of the data, let's see, 280 is the highest, 20 is people are $220,000 apart in their salary in this neighborhood, but the average is 53,000. I wouldn't care very much about the average anymore, right? Knowing how spread apart the data is, that would tell me right away, oh, you have some people making a lot and some people making a little, okay? So those things are going to be important and are going to be important when you mention your studies. Now, sometimes when you guys do studies, you find that things are correlated, okay? However, there are confounding factors. For example, there is a data chart that shows the number of fire trucks. We kind of did this when we did correlation is not causation, okay? How severe the number of fire trucks sent to a fire, and how severe the fire was. And it turns out the more fire trucks you sent to a fire, the more severe the fire was. So solution, stop sending as many fire trucks, right? Because then the fire won't be as severe, right? Okay. Correlation, but not causation, right? So here are some situations where there's another factor that the person isn't looking at. For example, a study found a strong positive correlation between the foot length of a K through 12 student and their reading score. So, students that have bigger feet read better. Yeah? What is it that they're missing here? Yeah. Age is the confounding factor here, right? They're missing out the variable of age. Age is important in this one. They are not acknowledging age of person, okay? Students who use tutors have lower test scores than students who don't. Danny. Right. The students with the lower test score probably went to get a tutor more proactively, right? Okay? So there would be the lower score motivating getting the tutor, right? So this is what we have to be careful about our survey. When we study something, we have to make sure that there's not something underlying that's going to make our results seem one way. Okay, a survey shows a strong positive correlation between the percentage of a country's inhabitants that use, cell phones and the life expectancy of that country. So like the more people that use cell phones, the longer you live, people. Everybody get on your cell phone. Okay. What do you think is happening there? Look at what they looked at. A country's inhabitants. So the countries whose inhabitants used more cell phones had longer life expectancy. And so they're saying, you know what, use your cell phone more, you live longer. Kenny? Okay. Zach? Good. Okay. I'm just going to write first world countries would have more cell phones, right? So that's what Kenny was getting at when he was saying it would depend on the technology. So third world countries have some other barriers that they're fighting against, right? Because they haven't fixed those problems for whatever reason, political, social, whatever, okay, monetary. In first world countries, they've solved all of that. So they don't have as many medical issues and things like that. They also happen to have more cell phones because they have more money. It has nothing to do that they use their cell phone more so they live longer, right? Okay, the number of speeding tickets a student has is less than that of his or her parents. Andrew. They've been driving less. Okay, so again, kind of age is a factor here, right? Okay. So we can go through the last one tomorrow. Remember, all I want you guys to do is print out the note guide, take the survey, and then look at those different ways to collect data, okay? Yeah. It might just be